This video is part 2a of my healing guide. We'll talk about Mystic in this one, and part 2b will be about Priest. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, then you should watch that one as well. Part 1 was about healing in general and about the things that are the same for both healing classes, such as gear for example. Part 1 combined with this video is a full Mystic guide, and part 1 combined with part 2b will be a full Priest guide. Mystics have two iframing skills, which are called Teleport Jaunt and Mass Teleport. Both look pretty much the same and both only let you iframe for a short time, so it might take a while to get used to the iframe window on this class. The cooldown time of Teleport Jaunt is a lot shorter than the cooldown of Mass Teleport, but Mass Teleport will also teleport an iframe for team members that are right next to you the moment you cast the skill. This can be nice in some situations, because it gives you the option to save a DPS or tank player. But at the same time, you don't want to teleport other players if there is no need to. Suddenly getting teleported can mess up rotations, timing, and even their sense of direction for a moment. There are two ways to give your party a healing effect which continuously heals over a certain time period. This is nice in case your party only needs minor healing. They do recover a nice amount of HP, but it takes a bit of time to do so, which is why they are not the best choice if a lot of heals are required quickly. Warding Totem is literally a totem that you put down on the ground, which then gives an HP recovery effect to everybody within a range of 20 meters. The other way to give an HP recovery effect to your party is by dropping some A-Rune's Vitae motes and then using a runic release to make them explode. Up to 4 motes explode each time you use the skill, and the effect of the motes stacks. It only applies to players who got hit by the AoE though. Another advantage of the motes is that party members can pick them up themselves in case you're unable to keep up. However, don't rely on that, because most players will rather die than pick up a mote. HP motes will also heal you the moment you drop them, so they are nice for healing yourself as well. Boomerang Pulse heals a lot faster than HP recovery skills. The standard version of this skill is an orb that flies in a straight line in the direction you aim it at. After it traveled a certain distance, it then flies back towards you. The orb will heal allies and damage enemies it hits on its path. It is possible to change the behavior of this skill though, by investing into an advancement skill. Instead of flying in the direction you aim it at, it will automatically fly towards up to 4 allies within 15 meters. There is also a lock-on skill called Titanic Favor. This skill can be cast relatively quickly, and log-on feels smoother than on Priest. It also has a short cooldown time of only a couple of seconds, and a nice range too. In addition to this, it heals allies by a nice amount, so it is perfect if your party members need some bigger heals. In case the situation gets really bad, with everybody being at low HP and maybe in need of cleanses as well, then Thrall of Life is the best choice. The moment you summon this Thrall, it will heal and cleanse everybody within its area of effect. It has a cooldown time of over 20 seconds, so you won't be able to spam this skill, but it is the most valuable healing and cleansing skill you have in critical situations. Mystic has a dedicated cleansing skill called A-Rune's Cleansing Touch. It is a lock-on skill with a short cooldown of only a couple of seconds. As I mentioned, Thrall of Life also cleanses, but if only cleansing is required, then Thrall of Life is a bit overkill. Party members can also cleanse themselves by picking up A-Rune's Vitae motes, though that won't be possible if they are stunned. Making motes explode will not cleanse though. DPS and tank players will usually need some help recovering MP. Besides the healing motes, there are also MP modes called A-Rune's Tears. Just like the healing modes, you can make the MP modes explode, which gives an MP recovery effect to your team members if they get hit. Corruption Ring is another way to recover MP. For this to work, you will first have to hit the boss with at least one hit of Corruption Ring, and then cast the skill a second time right after, which will then recover MP for party members within range. Resurrect is the skill that you use to bring other players back to life if they cannot get up by themselves. In some dungeons, you will have to be careful when using this skill, because some bosses will aim attacks at you the moment you cast it. In easy dungeons, this is usually not the case, but it will be important in dungeons such as Forbidden Arena, for example. Before starting a fight, you should use Vow of Rebirth. It will give you a free res in case you die. If you're new to a dungeon, then you often get a free res anyway. In that case, it is better not to use Vow of Rebirth before the start, but rather wait until after you've used your free noob res. If you're in a longer fight, then make sure to renew Vow of Rebirth when it's off cooldown and you don't have a res left. You can check your buff bar to see if the icon is there or not. There are 2 debuffs you should be using as soon as they come off cooldown. They are called Contagion and Volley of Curses. Contagion reduces endurance and Volley of Curses reduces the magic resistance of enemies. This means that DPS and tank players will be able to do more damage if you keep the debuffs up. Another debuff that is occasionally useful is Regression. This is not used to increase DPS though, but rather it is used for some dungeon mechanics, so don't use Regression unless a specific dungeon mechanic requires it. Giving buffs to your party is just as important as debuffing the bosses. Thrall of Protection is used to increase your party's endurance, which reduces the amount of damage they take if hit by the boss. You should use this before starting a fight and during the fight if the effect ran out. The effect lasts for 10 minutes, but if a player dies, the effect will be cancelled as well. Thrall of Vengeance and Thrall of Wrath will give power and crit power buffs respectively. It only applies to party members inside the summoning AoE though. The effects don't last for too long, so it is important to refresh these buffs whenever you can, especially if the boss is enraged. All the Thrall effects I mentioned for healing and buffs only apply if the apex skill called Thrall Augmentation is active, so make sure to switch it on before the fight and after you died. Mystics also have auras which they should leave on during a fight. They are called Aura of the Merciless and Aura of the Tenacious. These also have to be activated before the fight and every time you die. Sometimes a dungeon mechanic requires you to stun monsters or put them to sleep. Shara's Lash is used to stun enemies, and Sonorous Dream will put them to sleep. Sleeping enemies will wake up right away if they are hit by an attack, so in case you have to put enemies to sleep, you might want to do that out of reach of the DPS player's skills. Over the duration of a dungeon battle, Thrall of Wrath usually does most of the damage. Thralore does a lot of damage in a short time as well, but due to the long cooldown, the total amount of damage it does is lower than the total amount of damage Thrall of Wrath does. Thrall of Vengeance also does damage, but way less. As I mentioned earlier, you can make up to 4 modes explode at once by using a runic release. The explosions will regenerate HP or MP, but at the same time they will do damage to monsters that get hit. The amount of damage done by modes can actually be significant, so if you've caught up on everything else, then you should be dropping modes. In lower level dungeons, I usually drop a bunch of modes before the fight starts and in between enrage phases. During enrage, I then use a runic release to make the modes explode. Metamorphic Blast and Metamorphic Smite are usually not needed in dungeons, but they can be useful if you're solo fighting monsters. Also, in case a mechanic requires you to use Regression, then following it up with Metamorphic Smite will cancel the animation of Regression. The skill called Command Attack can be used to tell your thralls to attack in case they just stand around. Usually they start attacking by themselves, but that's not always the case. There are some skills that you should not use in dungeons. I won't go into details about why, but those skills are Sharon Bolt, Aura of the Swift, Aura of the Unyielding, Curse of Exhaustion, Curse of Confusion, and Maya. Mana Infusion can help if you run out of MP, but if you're using a Prime Battle solution and you keep recharging MP using modes or Corruption Ring, then this should not happen. Mystics have 5 different thralls, but they cannot summon all of them at once. In fact, the maximum number of thralls that a mystic can have at once is only 2. If you summon Thralore, Thrall of Vengeance, or Thrall of Wrath, while another one of them is still out, then the older one will be unsummoned the moment you summon the new one. The same goes for Thrall of Life and Thrall of Protection. It can be difficult to keep an overview of what you have to do before starting the boss fight, so I decided to sum it up at this point. Make sure to activate Aura of the Merciless, Aura of the Tenacious, and Thrall Augmentation. Use Vow of Rebirth before starting the fight, unless you still have a free noob res, and summon Thrall of Protection to increase the endurance of your party members. Make sure you also use Thrall of Protection to rebuff the party members in case they died. Once you're done with the preparations, you should spam HP and MP modes until the tank actually starts the fight. For the glyph setup, I'll let you know which ones are essential for healing and which ones you can add if you still have points left to spend. If your glyphs are not upgraded to the rare versions yet, then they might be a bit weaker and cost a bit more points. Also, if you're not level 70 yet, then you don't have all the points unlocked, which is why you might not be able to get all the glyphs right away. The grounded glyph for Corruption Ring can come in handy in some dungeons, so make sure to activate that one. For Titanic Favor, you should grab the multiplicative one, and if you have points left, you can spend them on Longshot. The multiplicative Arun's cleansing glyph is essential, and so is everything for Resurrect, except for the Brilliant glyph, which is not useful. So grab the Energetic, Hastened, and Hearty ones. For Vow of Rebirth, you should get the Altruistic, Energetic, and Multiplicative glyphs. Energetic Teleport Jaunt, Restorative Arun's Vitae, Enfeebling Volley of Curses, and United Thrall of Protection are essential for healing as well. If you have points left at the end, you can spend those on Energetic and Lingering for Thrall of Life. The Persistent Thrall of Life glyph is also a good choice if you feel like you need to summon the Thrall more often. Grab the Energetic glyph for Thrall of Wrath so you can give the crit power buff to your party more often. And if you have points left to spend, you can put some into Empowered Thrall of Vengeance, and more importantly for DPS, Empowered Thrall of Wrath. The last 2 essential glyphs are Lingering Contagion and Energetic Boomerang Pulse. Restorative Warding Totem and Longshot Arunic Release are worth it as well if you have points left. For enhancement points, I used the example setup from the Priest and Mystic Discord server as basis, but made some changes. You can find the link to the Healer Discord in the description below. Let's first look at the core EP and then the rest. If you haven't reached the maximum amount of 500 EP yet, then you should start by spending the points on the core EP first. In the Speed Increase tab, you should level Velocity for Resurrect and Synergy for Thrall of Protection to the maximum possible. Also max out Wrath of Spires and Reload for Vow of Rebirth in the Resource Recovery tab. Finally, go to the Defense tab and get Mighty Defense as well as Stigma for Volley of Curses. Upgrade those to the maximum possible level as well. Now that you have all the essential EP, we can look at where to spend the rest of the points. You can increase your DPS by going to the Strength and Offense tab and maxing out Mighty Attack and Strength and Summon for both the Thrall of Wrath and Thrall of Vengeance. In the Resource Recovery tab, you should also max out Propulsion for Titanic Favor. Also upgrade Mighty Phoenix to level 1 in the Defense tab. At this point, you should still have EP left, so let's look at the things I did differently than the Healer Discord. In the Strength and Offense tab, I invested 1 point into Group Pummel for Thrall of Wrath. In the Speed Increase tab, I only upgraded Combat Speed Up for Teleport Jaunt to level 7 rather than maxing it out. I also upgraded Combat Dash for Thrall of Vengeance and Acceleration Effect for Warding Totem, both to level 5. Under Resource Recovery, I only improved Overly Amplify for Corruption Ring to level 7 rather than maxing it out. This is because I mostly recover MP using modes, so I personally don't use Corruption Ring that often. Finally, I upgraded Protection and Blessing for Thrall of Life to levels 2 and 5 respectively. As for any class, you should aim to eventually max out the skill advancements for level 66, 68 and 70. For the level 67 and 69 upgrades, you will have to choose one of 3 options on each. For Titanic Favor, you should get the middle one, which is called Amplified Healing. For the Boomerang Pulse upgrade, you can choose between the left effect called Heal and the middle one called Chain. Which one is best depends on the party, the dungeon and your playstyle, but if you only pick one of both, that will be fine already. I personally use the Chain upgrade. I like that I don't have to worry about aiming the skill, however with this upgrade, Boomerang will heal each party member only once. With the upgrade called Heal, it will heal and damage each time the orb hits an ally or an enemy, and the orb will just be faster and bigger than without an upgrade. Mystic has a crit cap of 500. This means that you should build crit factor until you reach a value of 500 and then focus on power. As I mentioned in part 1, power does not increase healing, but it does increase your DPS. Use your jewelry, relic and halidom to adjust the crit factor. For healers, if a cooldown reduction, attack speed, magic resistance or magic amplification stat is available, then crit factor and power are not the best choices. INNERWEAR and ETCHINGS are a good example for this. I forgot to mention INNERWEAR and ETCHINGS in part 1 of my healer guide, so here it is. For the weapon and gloves, you should get energetic etchings. And for the body armor and boots, you can go with either grounded or relentless. For the INNERWEAR, the best choice would be magic resistance, but in case you cannot get that one for some reason, then you can use HP in the meantime. Well, that's it for this video. As I said earlier, you can find the link for the Healer Discord in the description below. You'll also find the link to the TERA Master Race server. It is worth joining both if you want to be up to date quickly after a new patch goes live. Anyway, leave a like if this video was helpful and subscribe for more. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop those below. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.